I always look forward to the roadshows. It's a great opportunity to catch up with people, but I'm conscious that not everybody can make it to them. So we thought we'd use technology as an opportunity to cover some of what I've talked about at the roadshows, and specifically to give people some sense of some of our achievements of late, just to take stock of that, but also think about some of the challenges that we know we're going to face in the future, but some sense of the plans that we have in order to respond to those challenges. So the broader context is our vision, which is of course to make Central Bedfordshire a great place to live and work. That remains our focus. But clearly we can't do that, we can't deliver that without you. And so I wanted to give you some sense of the difference that you and other colleagues have been making. If we remember back to springtime, one of the highlights for us was the Queen coming to Dunstable to open Priory View, which is our new 83 apartment facility aimed at people who are a little older. And you know, that was a great event, and the crowds turned up. It was really a joyous occasion. But for me, great though it was to have the Queen come and visit Priory View, actually the story of one particular resident typifies what that scheme is really about. So a guy called Mike, who attracted a fair degree of notoriety on the day of the Queen's visit because he was actually having his feet done as she came to see him. So the press gravitated towards him. But his story is really quite powerful, and he talks about how on his last birthday before he came into the scheme, he had, I think it was 4 birthday cards. That was the extent of his social network. Having moved into the scheme, he then had another birthday, and the number of birthday cards he received the second time round went up to 50. That's the difference it has had on his social network. And I think that just is a reminder that schemes like Priory View are more than just about bricks and mortar, important though the accommodation is, great quality though it is actually about enabling people to remain connected, to remain independent. And we're seeing the benefits of that, not just for us as a council, but also on the health system. So fewer people needing to place demands on the health system as a result of the quality of life, the well-being that they're enjoying in schemes like Priory View. So hopefully Mike's story gives us an insight to the difference that we can make to people's lives. I wanted to share with you another story from the other end of the age range, if you like. This is Emily's story. So she's one of our young care leavers, and she's written a poem, a very powerful poem, which describes the impact that we have on her, and how it's really important that we kind of remain focused on working with young people, particularly young people suffering some sort of disadvantage.
There will be moments other people make us want to cut our puzzle short because it's not worth the work. But we rely on you to keep strong, even if at times it takes some glue to keep the pieces settled. There is no rule book to how this works. Just listen to our voices. Be creative, be patient. We really need you to help us find our pieces. Encourage yourselves and us to make the most of it, as forgetting pieces can be fatal. But always remember life is an adventure, and together we are creating a masterpiece.
Having reflected on Emily's experiences, that when Ofsted visited us earlier in the year and spent quite a lot of time with us, a very intense process, that they rated us as a good authority. That's a reflection of the work that we do, particularly in children's social care. But as I say, the Ofsted rating is important, but it's the difference that we make to children's lives that kind of really motivates us, isn't it? So there are other ways that we're making a big difference to people's lives. Some of it is about the investment that we've made in infrastructure. So you may be aware of the fact that we've recently opened 2 new roads in the southern part of Central Bedfordshire. One is the A5 M1 link and the other is the Woodside link. And this is really important. It goes to what we're trying to do in terms of regenerating Dunstable, so those roads provide relief for Dunstable, but they also unlock additional homes and stimulate job creation. And we think there are something like 2,500 jobs that have been stimulated, new business investment taking place on the back of that investment in road infrastructure. So some of those physical things that we do are equally important in making a real difference to people's lives. Now, we've talked about on many occasions the amount of growth that's coming to central Bedfordshire. It's a reflection of where we sit in the country, our connectivity. So we know there's lots of houses being built already and there's many more to come. So how we plan for that is really important. And so we've reached an important stage in what's called our local plan process. We've recently consulted local people on where we think growth should be accommodated in the future, the type of infrastructure that should underpin that. And we had something like 10,000 people engage in that consultation process, which I think is a reflection of how important this issue is. So the progress we're making in taking our local plan forward, giving us the ability to manage growth in a way that delivers benefit, not just for the new folk that will come here, but also for existing people, has been really important. And then if we cast our minds back a little bit to May time, we of course had the snap election, the snap general election, which we hadn't been envisaging. So on top of the day job that everybody was doing, we needed to rally round and gear up and administer an election, which is a major logistical exercise. Typically you have months of preparation for an event like an election. We had 7 weeks, and that required us to mobilise, involved 400 staff from across the organisation. We made sure that 120,000 people were able to cast their ballots in an important event in the nation's political landscape. So that's an example of how responsive the organisation can be, even when something unplanned happens, and we just crack on and do it in addition to the day job. So we've delivered some great things to date, but we're not standing still. So we're thinking about how do we deliver even better things in the future. And there are kind of 3 elements of this that we constantly come back to. One is making sure that we are truly responsive to our customers or our residents. So what does a truly customer-focused organisation look like? There's that constant requirement for us to find new efficiencies. That's not just about responding to financial pressure. It's about recognising that our stewardship responsibilities. We are responsible for significant sums of public money, public assets in their broadest sense. We have to discharge that responsibility as efficiently as possible. And then increasingly what we're learning is that the more we operate in a connected way, both within the council and with other parts of the systems that we work within, that's where we can deliver something which is greater than the sum of its parts. So we're constantly reaching for ways in which we can fuse together contributions from different parts of our organisation and also some of those partners that we work with. So let's think about a couple of examples that illustrate some of those issues I'm touching on. Let's think about efficiency. And it's tempting to think about efficiency as about cuts, but that's not what I'm talking about here. So if we reflect back to some of those conversations that we had a while ago as part of Project 3D, people were telling us that they wanted to have the tools to do the job. They wanted to operate in a way that's agile. So one illustration of how we're applying that in practice is with the corporate parenting team that recently moved from premises in Bedford. But actually the significance of that move lies much more in the use of technology, for example, than it does in a change of location. So the team are using technology to the full. They're not running off Citrix, they're using laptops and iPads, mobile phones. They can meet with a set of parents, meet with a client and do all that they need to do on using the technology that they have available. So they are a genuinely agile service. And then there's that issue about being customer focused, customer responsive, whatever terminology we want to use. And sometimes I think people associate that with just those services that are connecting directly with residents or clients or customers. But actually, what some of those colleagues that do in so-called support services is at least as important. They are integral to our ability to support the wider public. And I was just catching up with a story about one business support officer in children's services who is involved in making sure that healthcare assessments take place for children and young people. They're dealing with something like 300 cases. And because they are approaching their job with such passion and such a focused way, kind of really making sure that those healthcare assessments take place, it is, apart from anything else, just relieving so much pressure on our social workers. So people that are doing things a little bit behind the scenes are as important to us in delivering services which are really based on the needs of our customers, that are customer responsive, as those that are more in the front line, as it were. So that issue around acting in a way that's more connected within the council and with others as well. And a good illustration of what I mean here is what we're now doing in Dunstable. So we're currently refurbishing the leisure centre in Dunstable, but we're doing much more than that. We're actually integrating a new library facility within that leisure centre. So rather than just look at those two services in isolation, libraries and leisure, we're actually both of which are operating out of facilities that need upgrading. We've actually fused that together in a way that enables us to deliver greater efficiency, but also to provide a kind of more wholesome range of services to the public we're here to support. So we can envisage daycare facilities being available out of that combined leisure and library facility that we're upgrading. So that's what I mean about instead of just looking at issues through the lens of an individual service, actually looking at the outcomes that we're wanting to achieve for the public and pulling together different components of the council to deliver something which is a much more rounded offer for our customers. So there are plenty of challenges ahead, and some of them are ones that we've talked about in the past. The financial pressures don't relent, expectations are rising, technology, which is perhaps an opportunity as well as a challenge. And increasingly, I think what we're learning is that to have the impact that we want to on our public, we need to think about whole systems. So it's not just what we do as an educational authority, it's the way we work with our schools. It's not just what we do as a social care authority, it's what we do in conjunction with the health system, for example. So that whole system approach is really important to us. But I think if we keep focused on those three things, about being truly customer focused, about remaining seized of the need for efficiency because we are responsible for public resources, not just because of budget pressures, and also operating in a way that kind of fuses together the different contributions of various parts of the council, we know that we can get through those challenges. And what we're really keen to do is to listen to your perspectives, listen to your examples of how we can do that in practice and how we can extend that to other parts of the organisation. And there are various ways that you can put those forward. Just to give you two examples, you may be aware I do a blog every week. By all means, add a comment on some of my blogs. Or if you want to email me, feel free to do. Really keen to hear your ideas.